The Golden State Killer, a name that sends chills down the spines of Californians and echoes through the annals of criminal history. This is not the story of a single crime, but a decades-long wave of terror that swept through California. From the quiet suburbs of Sacramento to the sun-drenched streets of Southern California, a predator lurked. He was a phantom, a whisper in the night, leaving a trail of fear, pain, and unanswered questions. His crimes, as varied as they were vicious, seemed unconnected, the work of different hands. But the truth, as we would come to learn, was far more sinister. One man, driven by a darkness we may never fully comprehend, was responsible for it all. This is the story of how a community paralyzed by fear found its voice. It's the story of law enforcement, relentless in their pursuit, refusing to let the case grow cold. And it's the story of how the evolution of forensic science, particularly the groundbreaking use of genetic genealogy, finally unmasked a monster and brought a community one step closer to healing. The Golden State Killer's reign of terror may have ended, but the scars he left on the lives of his victims, their families, and a generation of Californians remain. This is their story. The small town of Visalia, California, nestled amidst the tranquility of the San Joaquin Valley, seemed an unlikely breeding ground for terror. Yet it was here in the mid-1970s that the seeds of darkness were sown. A string of seemingly unconnected burglaries began to plague the town. Homes were ransacked, valuables taken, but it was the seemingly insignificant items that hinted at something more sinister. Women's underwear, sometimes taken, sometimes rearranged, pointed to a disturbing obsession. The perpetrator, dubbed the Visalia ransacker, was a ghost, slipping in and out of homes, leaving a community on edge. Fear turned to panic as the ransacker's crimes escalated. A chilling encounter with a teenage girl where he attempted to kidnap her was thwarted by the bravery of her father, Claude Snelling. Snelling tragically was shot and killed, marking the first known murder linked to the man who would become the Golden State Killer. The ransacker vanished from Visalia soon after, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a community forever scarred. Little did they know this was just the beginning. The monster in their midst was only just beginning to spread his wings, ready to unleash a reign of terror that would span a decade and countless lives. The tranquility of Sacramento County, just north of Visalia, was shattered in 1976. A new wave of terror began, this time marked by a chilling escalation in violence. The East Area Rapist, as he would come to be known, began his reign of terror, targeting couples in their homes. His modus operandi was as calculated as it was cruel. He would stalk his victims, learning their routines, their vulnerabilities. Then, under the cover of darkness, he would invade their sanctuary, transforming their safe haven into a nightmare. The East Area Rapist's crimes were not just about sexual assault, they were about power, control, and the deliberate infliction of terror. He would bind and gag the male partner, often placing dishes on their backs, threatening to kill their loved one if they moved. The female victims were subjected to horrific sexual assaults, often lasting for hours. The psychological torture he inflicted was as damaging as the physical violence, leaving his victims deeply traumatized. The East Area Rapist's reign of terror continued for 3 long years. His identity a mystery, his motives shrouded in darkness. But the monster was evolving, his crimes becoming more frequent, more brazen, and far more deadly. Section 4, Southbound Darkness, the original Night Stalker's shadow. As quickly as he had emerged in Northern California, the East Area Rapist vanished. But the monster did not disappear. He merely migrated south, his reign of terror taking on a new, even more sinister form. In Southern California, he became known as the original Night Stalker, his crimes escalating to a horrifying new-level murder. No longer content with inflicting terror and pain, he began to claim lives, leaving a trail of blood and heartbreak in his wake. His victims were varied, seemingly chosen at random. Couples, young and old, were brutally murdered in their homes. Robert Offerman and Deborah Manning in Goleta, Charlene and Lyman Smith in Ventura, Keith and Patrice Harrington in Dana Point. These are just a few of the names forever etched in the grim history of the original Night Stalker. The brutality of the murders, often involving bludgeoning and stabbing, shocked even seasoned investigators. The terror that had gripped Northern California had now spread south, leaving law enforcement scrambling to connect the dots. Could this be the work of the East Area rapist, his crimes escalating to a terrifying new level? The answer, as we would come to learn, was a resounding yes, but for now, the monster remained one step ahead, his true identity a mystery, his motives as elusive as ever.